Welcome back, Steve Price with you. Still to come. Now, election speculation is mounting, as we know. So when is the Prime Minister likely to call it, and what does that mean for polling day, the date? The Australian's Paul Kelly is live in London with Peter. That'll be up very shortly. Now, with that decision and the date drawing closer as every day passes, cost of living friendly policy, I reckon, is going to be really important. I think Peter Dutton has struck some gold here with his promise to get stuck in to the insurance industry. Of all the cash pressure we have on families, house, car insurance, on top of the mortgage, petrol, food, and of course increasing energy costs, despite the government during the last election making those promises, some of the hardest to bear insurance. A friend of mine with a 20-year-old Subaru worth at best $4,000 is paying $60 a month. When she inquired about swapping, insurers had gone up to $90 a month. So I think Peter Dutton has got the sort of policy that wins elections. Joining me now, our panel to discuss, Liberal MP James Stephens, One Nation Chief of Staff James Ashby. Now, the Dutton idea is to ramp up pressure on these companies. The seat of Sturt, where you are, I grew up in that area. This would appeal, James, to both ends of the demographics in your electorate, wouldn't it?
Look, spot on, Steve. I mean, this is Peter Dutton sending a really clear message that he's on the side of Aussie families and Aussie businesses when required against the big corporates. And I think we've heard a lot of horror stories about what the insurance industry can get up to at times, and I think people will strongly welcome Peter Dutton saying, hey, you better be careful, because if you're doing the wrong thing, we'll be making necessary changes to put that to an end.
Yeah, and it's kids buying their first car and people perhaps trading up to the last car they have. I mean, it's a no-brainer. James, I reckon Queensland is crying out for insurance bill relief. We've seen how many Queenslanders can't even get insurance because of floods and cyclones.
Well, this seems to go against the Liberal convention of free market here. However, I think there are other levers that can be pulled. I know One Nation have been calling on government, both state and federal, to drop their taxes. Drop the 9% stamp duty in Queensland and in states right across the country. And drop the 10% GST. You haven't been provided, in effect, a service on your insurance unless you make a claim. So you've been charged 10% on the actual premium, and then if you do make a claim, you charge 10% on any of the fix-up job, whether it be to your car or your house. So there are other mechanisms that can be used here. 20% can be carved off like that if government want to remove the taxes.
James Stephens, we just saw Peter Credlin there talking to Nigel Farage, talking about how woke Britain has become. The Australian Bureau of Stats has now confirmed that next year, when all of us are asked to record our census, to tick all the right boxes, you tick sex recorded at birth, so I'll put male. We've got new questions now, though, asking 16-year-olds and older what their sexual orientation and gender is that they would like to choose.
Yeah, Steve, I've lost track of all this stuff, to be honest. I mean, there are two genders, male and female. I don't know why it is that we're having these endless debates about this, and I think a lot of Australians are going to become really confused, and it's potentially going to affect the census. There was a time they wanted to put Jedi Knight down as a religious option, and I just think let's keep things nice and straightforward and simple. There are two genders, male and female, no question about it.
James Ashby, I mean, the Labor Party seems a bit flip-floppy on this. I mean, at one point they said, OK, we won't have that in the census. It now seems that if they're re-elected, it will be there. I presume that you would not be in favour of people answering that question on a government form?
Well, what's the point, Steve? You know, we're asking people to just identify as male or female. Apart from that, I don't know. I have no interest in knowing whether you're in a same-sex relationship or a heterosexual relationship or one with your donkey. I don't care. It shouldn't be on the census. Hopefully after this election we can get it cleared up and just remove them for the sake of every household.
James Ashby, speaking about clearing things up, you're trying to recruit Nationals frontbencher Barnaby Joyce. That's been reported. Is that right?
Well, look, as everyone's aware, last year there was a mishap with Barnaby in Canberra. We certainly reached out to him after his own party had more or less made approaches to him, and I'm talking senior members of the coalition, and said, Barnaby, it's time for you to go. When we knew that, we said, well, we'll go and make the offer to Barnaby. To his credit, he said, look, I'm staying loyal to the National Party, despite them going net zero. And I know that sort of rubs a number of those national parties up the wrong way, but he has remained loyal to the National Party, despite also not being the leader. So, look, good on Barnaby for being loyal to his party. But, look, if they ever want to get rid of him, One Nation are more than open to having those discussions with him to certainly come over to us.
Gee, I'd love your job, James Ashby, if you had to work for Pauline Hanson and Barnaby Joyce. How's that going to go? How do they get on?
Really well. You know, there's been a number of functions. They're both some of the best retail politicians we've got in the country. I've seen them at events like CPAC command huge money as a joint effort to raise money for that organisation and others for charity. So, you know, these two have got a good working relationship. Yeah, they're strong-willed, but one's in the Senate, one's in the lower house. I think it would work very well, particularly in a hung parliament. So I don't think this is the election where Peter Dutton or David Littleproud want to suggest that Barnaby Joyce goes and retires or goes and joins another party. I think they'd be silly given the fact they need so many seats to form government in their own right.
James Stephens, James Ashby, thank you for that. And I think the idea of locking Barnaby up during the election campaign